Well, ladies and gentlemen, it wouldn't be another day that ends in Y if we didn't have some sort of cover-up story happening in the mainstream gaming industry, especially when it has to do over identity politics. But we have yet another example of just that. Catalyst Game Labs has now covered up for an employee apparently threatening violence to Battletech players over identity politics.
Stop it. Get some help.
Now, I remember seeing this being posted over by Grooms on Twitter, and I didn't really get to dive into it too much because I had a lot to do today. But of course, it's not very shocking to see yet another example of DEI running amok in a different game and completely ruining the community in that game. Let's be real, man. These games are just getting completely destroyed, man. Warhammer is having a civil war right now and imploding from within, all because they decided to basically bend the knee to DEI and take that funding. Now you have that community, which was a very tight-knit, extremely based community, and now all of a sudden it's completely being torn apart and having a little minor civil war. So let's get into this article, guys. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now we're talking about Battletech, okay? Battletech Pride Anthology of 2023. I made a video about this where it says queer tales from the inner sphere, and this is a mech, apparently mech warrior. I really don't know. It says trans rights, or I bite with the trans flag on the mech warrior. Clearly, that is what you want from a game like this, but I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. In the previous reports, Phantom Pulse has covered both the Warhammer 40k backlash and Cynthia Williams' recent resignation from Wizard of the Coast. As a wise monk once said, 3 times becomes a pattern, as it is revealed today by Mark Kern, veteran game developer and popular cultural advocate. Catalyst Game Labs is now under occupation by woke Marxist activists who continue to plague Western culture through the destruction of properties like Battletech, Mech Warrior, and Shadowrun. Now, we've talked about this many times before, not just about Mech Warrior. We've mentioned this about many different game studios. Marxism is absolutely here in the gaming scene, ladies and gentlemen. It has been here for a while, and it was working in the shadows up until Sweet Baby Inc. essentially blew the lid off of the cover, and now everybody is talking about it, and it's not dying down. As much as they wanted to die down, let's be real, they are dying for the conversation to end, but it's not going to end. We are going to keep the conversation going, and it's only ramping up from here because what's happening, rightfully so, should have been discovered many years ago. It says that on April 18th, Mark Kern started a new thread on Twitter, bringing attention to the latest act of subversion. It began around 2021 when Faith McCloskey, a trans activist posing as an author, harassed Blaine Pardoe, a veteran writer for Battletech. McCloskey convinced Catalyst to fire Blaine Pardoe despite objections from the Battletech community in an attempt to purge non-leftists from Battletech franchise. A decent amount of background on McCloskey can be found on Blaine Pardoe's blog. Now, I didn't even know about this. Very interesting. If you read this post, let's just read it together because I actually haven't read this before. It says, Robin, why do you carry a handgun to your Battletech events? It's just a board game. Because there's Nazi motherfuckers like this running around in the community. That's why. And if they try to hurt me, my girlfriend, or my players, I'm sending them home in a body bag, period. Now, that's interesting. So it's perfectly fine for trans people to be extremely violent, but God forbid anybody else wants to defend themselves from psychopaths like this, and then you end up having a thing. It says Mark Kern also mentioned that the incident that triggered Catalyst to lash out at their fans was recent leaked messages from Catalyst support team that involved a former Battletech author and demo team member going by the name of Robin, who was doxing a community member by revealing their home address on Google Maps. According to the email, Robin was quietly fired, and it looked like no one would hear about this incident. Now, the fact that this person decided to dox another person's real home all because they had a disagreement, like I said in my last video, absolutely retarded. If you missed that video, go check it out. But it's the most stupid thing to do, right? Like, once you try to dox people, you basically admit that you've lost. You've lost all the arguments. You've lost all form of a discussion. And all you have left is to try to hurt that person. That's it. That's all you have. You've given up everything else. And look how this person looks. Look, I mean, listen. After a certain point, you got to start to realize that, you know, multicolored hair is starting to be a sign of, hey, maybe this person's mentally ill. Maybe you should avoid it. It wasn't always like that, but unfortunately for people who like to dye their hair, who maybe aren't mentally ill, you probably should try to find something else, because it looks like multicolored hair has been co-opted by Marxists. It says, but when the leaks came out, the community managers went into a frenzy, blocking anyone that mentioned the incident, including OtterPops, a longtime Battletech supporter who withdrew said support in the wake of this mass purge to cover up unlawful behavior by one of their former employees. The question lies, as a result of the situation, was Catalyst seeking to rehire Robin once the outrage blows over? Probably. Let's be real, probably. That happens quite often. You know, nobody even talks about what happened to the vice president of whatever the freaking position was at Bud Light. Her, you know, when she got fired or supposedly just completely disappeared, nobody was asking questions. And after a while, I am positive they brought her back into the fold once the hatred died down. They probably were going to do the same thing here. That tends to be their strategy. It says the probable answer is that the question lies with a critical community manager who was directed traffic to slowly subvert and occupy Battletech, known as Rem Alternis, who, according to a recent interview with Sarna, played a 2 of 2 Battletech games. So how did Rem successfully turn Battletech into a skin suit to preach Marxist propaganda? Mark Kern gave a detailed scenario of how Rem Alternis accomplished this by taking over the subreddit Battletech and the Battletech demo team. Now, you got to be very careful with these psychopaths who are community managers, because they are community managers for a reason, right? Not only is it an easy job for them that they have a very little chance of messing up, but it also allows them to utilize the community aspect to push identity politics in a video game and try to normalize it, essentially. Try to make it something that people are used to seeing with XYZ kind of game. To summarize the situation, Rem, under the blessing of Catalyst, utilized threats and social engineering plots to remove apolitical moderators from both our Battletech and demo team and replace them with Marxist activists. It was pretty evident that Rem Alternis had every intention of rehiring Robin, who said he was carrying a firearm and openly threatened non-leftists, calling them Nazis. Now the Battletech community is under occupation by communists. Well, isn't that everything in the mainstream gaming industry at this point? I feel like everything is basically taken over by Marxists and communists. Like, this is the reason why they want this stuff, is because they really genuinely view gaming as an entertainment medium with the ability to have social change. That's what they want. They want to utilize gaming as a means to force and push social change that benefits them. That's what they want, and they genuinely view gaming as such. We know this to be the case because we've seen them preach about this over at the GDC, which is essentially just a Marxist gathering and convention for other game developers who are also Marxists. That is what was shown in many different years, many different slides for many different showcases at the convention. It has been leaked many times, and we know this to be true. Literally, word for word, Marxism in gaming is a goal that they have. It says, so with the 3 mainstream tabletop publishers under occupation of woke activists, many other tabletop publishers such as Paizo, R. Talarissian, and Frog God Games, and others should be on high alert for woke activists planning on taking over the entire industry, just like they did to movies, video games, and music backed with ESG investors. They are also independent game developers working on various projects, ready to step in should the need arise, and fans are highly encouraged to support and buy their products, especially when there is a crowdfunding campaign. Now, I've been saying this so many times, I'll just say it again. What's going to end up happening here is that you're going to have these big threes, right? You got big threes that are completely taken over by Marxists. So what are you going to end up doing? Well, realistically, what's that going to do? Just like the comic industry, it's going to leave a glaring gap in the industry that a lot of independent creators and independent companies should be able to take advantage of. You can find a very good living. You can find a very good community that's out there looking for a new home, because these losers have completely given up their entire community that they worked decades to have, all for ESG money. Like, that's all they did. So there is plenty of opportunity out there, and these gaps in the industry are going to be attacked by very smart people who are independent creators that are going to go take that community that has now been abandoned. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video. Let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.